So thanks, everybody. Are we there? Oh,
Yes.
good evening and welcome to the Design Advisory Panel meeting for April 24th. And so everybody received an agenda. Any additions to that agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Angie, seconder. Alex, and all in favor? Great. Okay. So we don't have any minutes to deal with this evening. We have three applications to look at tonight. And the first one is returning from our last meeting. And Caleb's just going to give a brief introduction to that project. So go ahead, Caleb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as mentioned, the first item is a returning item. This is development permit application DP 1375 for 210 Caledonia Avenue. And just a quick recap of what was discussed 2 weeks ago. This is a split zoned property. The development is on the R8 zoned portion of the property. That's medium density residential. The relevant development permits areas are the environmentally sensitive areas, hazardous slopes, and form and character. The proposed development is a 98-unit multifamily residential building, and it is a 6-story building. I will leave it there, but Chair, if you or any panel members who have any questions, happy to answer.
Great, thanks, Caleb. So we're just going to start off where we left off, and usually at this point, the applicant gave their full presentation last time, so usually I move on and see if the panel members have any questions of staff. But I want to, before we do that, I'm just wondering if the applicant wouldn't mind explaining the variances. There's actually a lot of variances. There's 6 variants for this project, and I think they're very substantial. I'm wondering if you could just go over them. You're welcome to share your screen to do it and just explain the rationale for each of them.
I'll let Ruben get that, and maybe while he's gathering that, because he might not have been prepared, nor have I, but can we give you like a 1-minute video? We talked to Lania about that, and then maybe that gives everybody a little bit better perspective of it in 3D in a video.
Sure. Well, that's a good idea.
I will just share my screen. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I'll mute myself so it's clearer.
So we thought we should just give a little bit more context. This is our building in the Google Earth model, just for people to understand how treed this area is and how the building is substantially covered by the existing vegetation and the trees that we will be planting. So this was one of the videos. I'll just put the second one. And there's another, just a quick shot that our client would like to show as well. So this is a view from Caledonia Avenue, and you can see that the building is in line with the remaining buildings of the street, and is also quite covered by the trees. So yeah, so that's it for the video we wanted to show. With regards to the variances, I'll just, let's see how I can do this. Hope you can see my screen. So So starting with the first variance, the building front yard setback. So if you can see here in our site plan. So because we had to, in a way, we had to give some of our property to have the sidewalk go in. If you see here, there's the property line, and we do have our sidewalk going in our property, which made it a bit tight for us to place the building. But here it is. So this is the closest portion where our building is to the property line. So that's the first variance. With regards to the building rear yard setback, so even though this is also part of our property, we can see here that, so this is the corner of the building, of the deck of the L1 floor plan, and this is the distance towards this property line. And Raymond, if you think you should add anything to what I'm explaining, please go ahead. The same applies to the landscape buffer. So we would require 1.8 meters, but we are actually at 0 at this point because of the deck of this unit. And then we do have the riparian setback. So that's, I would just like to note that most of our property, if you see this, this cyan blue line, so this is the 30-meter riparian setback. So most of our property was within that, which makes it a little tough to comply with this variance, because otherwise most of the property would be undevelopable. So that's that. We do have a building height variance. I'll just bring up the elevations. So here we have a 6.77 meter variance. The reason for this, it's in a way for the feasibility of the project, let's say, and I think, I mean, given the context of the building, even though it's a variance, we are in a, like I said, like we showed in the beginning, in a pretty forested area. So and also on a slope that we have of the road. So that height variance is not as noticeable due to the context of the building. And then finally, we have a fence height variance at the back. So this is a very slight variance that we can eventually get rid of by design. So see if I have a drawing where I actually show that. I think it's not in this presentation, but I will show exactly where this variance is. So here at the back, so it's this portion of this retaining wall, which has 0.44 meters of variance due to a ramp that we have to connect the interior lobby of the building to our viewing platform on the right. But we can eventually, by design, get rid of this variance by extending the planter and perhaps having vegetation under this ramp, which would decrease the height of the wall. And I think that's it for variances. I'm not sure if, I think I covered all of them. Raymond, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm okay. I think we're taking up enough time.
Okay.
In terms of the parking lot, like the circular part, is that in the riparian area?
Pretty well the whole
Yes.
site is in the riparian area, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
So here, yeah. Okay. So if that's all, I will stop sharing my screen if that's okay.
okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so panel members, anybody have any questions of staff? Hi, Jonathan, you've made it. That's good, thank you. Any questions of staff? Hector, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. To staff, is there any requirements for like amenity contributions on these kind of projects?
Yes, thank you. No, and for a project like this, where it is it's not a rezoning, we do not negotiate and secure community amenity contributions. There will, of course, be development cost charges that would be paid at the time of building permit, though.
Yeah. Following up on that question, is there any tool that the applicant can do any improvement to I think Tristle Street and the bridge crossing Milestone River, or there's no provisions on the development permit applications to consider that requirement?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, typically for development permits, we do not secure extraordinary offsite works except where necessary. That being said, sometimes there have been projects with voluntary offsite works that we have seen.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Angie, go ahead.
Madam Chair. I guess to clarify the second variance there, it looks like there's multiple lots being used on the same site, and that's where it seems like there's a lot line that crosses through the property, and that's where one of the variances is coming from. Am I understanding that correct? Yeah.
Yes, and so through the development permit, we will look at also having the lots consolidated. However, where we measure our setbacks from on a split zone property would be the zone boundary. So even when the lots are consolidated, there would still be a technically setback requirements on those zone boundaries.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I just have one question. Where was it? So the applicant actually in their presentation 2 weeks ago explained this sort of historical importance of this property for both the Sonomas people and Nanaimo's early pioneers. So I'm wondering if any of this is, if there's any archaeological assessment of the site that has to be done prior to development permit being issued, or if it's already been done.
Yes, thank you. So this site is not a presently known archaeological site, but that being said, there is high potential. So my understanding is that the owner is looking at having an archaeological overview assessment completed. I'm not sure if the applicant is able to speak further to that.
Yeah, I believe they're in the process of doing that. We did a similar thing because we did Riverstone, the other image building that you saw across the river by the same developer. And again, the same situation, it was done, and it was just a question of there might have been something underneath one of the existing tennis court or slab or something like that that was on that site. So nothing of any significance resulted from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Hector, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for presentation. I think the material is pretty good. Really helped me to understand the project. I see the effort that you guys are doing in trying to deal with a lot of restrictions. But anyways, I'm still trying to understand some of your design decisions on this project. I guess the first thing that kind of gave me like a kind of a red flag is when I was reading your application, you have this idea of high rise in the park concept, and usually when you talk about a high rise in park concept, you try to have a very small floor plate, and right now your project has a very extended floor plate. It's pretty long, and then on top of that, you are adding the parking lot ramp in the northeast corner. So for me, when I see, it's like I'm reading one thing, but then I'm looking at kind of a different solution there. For me, the other question that I have to the applicant, and maybe they can tell me more about it, is why the location on the ramp on the northeast and not on the northwest? And then the other thing that I have like also a bit of a concern, why to angle the building instead of keeping it parallel to the road, to Caledonia Avenue? Because at least in my mind, in that way, you are like actually further away from the river than what you have right now.
I guess I can talk to that. Ruben can always answer any of these too as well. The site is actually very steep between the building and Caledonia Avenue in that corner. It's probably even more steep in many ways. Part of the reason also is the soils underneath are very bad, and that's why there's 2 stories of parking underground there. You can't build a building. On an earlier scheme that we did, we couldn't even make a 2-story buildings work after we had done like a 4-story building, and this was the 3rd different version with the 3rd different client, and even screw piles had a difficulty in making that work. So we have to dig a hole in order to build any building, and this is the highest part of the natural benchmark, or the man-made natural benchmark, that there's 2 platforms, and we're building on top of that, which is parallel more to the river than the road. So again, it's all bad soil. So that's the short answer. So
yeah, but I know you agree, but let's say if you excavate the northwest side, I mean, instead of having the retaining walls kind of against the river, you will have the retaining walls against the road, right? And then your whole building can go down.
I know, but you have to remember it's about 1.5 stories or almost 2 stories high in the road in the corner, but we also have to dig down another 2 stories before the existing grade that's there now. So you have 4 stories of fill that you're building up against. We're even have to shore up where the parkade is right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to tell in the drawings. It's hard to see.
No. I understand,
Yeah.
like the slope and how it's a building located at. Just yeah. Anyways, it's one of my comments in terms of like again the floor plate of the building and the location on the site.
There's very little trees where the building is on top right now. So Kate can comment if she wants a little bit too, but it's just I think.
Yeah, and I guess my other comment is more related to the design of the building. I think the first floor, the first 4 levels, and then the next 2 levels are very similar. And I think the whole idea, looking at the design guidelines, is that there is a substantial setback and kind of different materials between the first 4 levels and then the last 2 levels. And then I think the other thing that it actually doesn't really help the building how it's presenting as a big massing. It's not just that you're not. I think actually the design guidelines talks about at least 6 meters of setback, which maybe you have. Honestly, I was not able to measure the drawings, but also having like almost like two flat roof or 2 flat lines. Like you see the first 4 levels, you have like a thick band. And then you have the other 2 levels, and then you have a flat roof. And as you were saying, like the other building that you designing from, like Riverside, the roof has a different like a roof line, right? Like you have like the tiny little broken roofs. So I think at least having 2 different roof lines, it will actually really help with how the massing of the building looks. And then my last comment here is like kind of the access of the building on the south. Because of the slope of the terrain, it's kind of stuck away, and I don't know if there will be an opportunity to create a plaza there, like something more that reads like a plaza. Because again, as I was commenting at the beginning, that area connects right away with the bridge, and it's a beautiful pedestrian zone, and I think if the design could actually help the zone and make it nicer, it would be great. Like I backed that area many times, and it has so much potential. And maybe that's the reason I'm so passionate about this project, because I really want to see a building there, but also I want to see a building that is in the right scale for that area. And I think that those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Hector. Angie, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Okay. Yes, thanks for the presentation. I think it was great to go through all of the details there a couple weeks ago and a few more here this week. I think that this is a really challenging site. It sounds like there's been, a long history and lots of studies and whatnot done to kind of make this work. I think the building is well sited to make the best of a challenging location. So I think that actually worked out well. And the height variance, I looking at the sections, I feel like a 5-story would be better suited to this neighborhood context. I understand, obviously we have a big need for housing here, so there's a balance there of trying to, get as much density as we can while also keeping the neighborhood context that we're working within. So I'm not sure. I'm a little bit undecided on that one, but I think it's it's a challenging goal to meet both of those things. So it's something to think about, I guess. The entrance is really well defined. I thought that was done well. It's easy to see. The only other note I had was just that I believe it's the east facade I'm looking at here, and or sorry, I guess it's the south. Sorry, yeah, and it's a little bit unusual that the color changes from, I guess it would be west to east on the south facade. So on the upper 2 stories, it's a bit more noticeable than the lower 4. But I just was wondering if, maybe there's another approach to look at there to see if there's a way to maybe make that a little bit more, just cohesive, I think, together. But overall, I know there was some staff comments about maybe using like a more neutral palette. I think that the color palette works. I think the white stands out a bit on the top, so maybe there's a more neutral tone there. But I think overall, I think the color palette works and it will fit in well there. So that's all my comments. Great.
Thanks, Angie. Alex, would you like to go?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the viewing platform element. I think it's a cool way to connect to nature, look down on the river. It is kind of a tricky spot, The building does seem a bit big, but at the same time, it is, not that much higher than the tree line. And it is tucked away on a little side street and tucked in the forest. When you look at it, like from an aerial view, it doesn't appear to be much bigger than the building that's across the river. That's pretty much all I have. My one comment is, since it's a steep hill, I don't know if having steps as opposed to a sidewalk would make more sense. I don't know if that would make it more accessible or less accessible. But it is a pretty steep road there. Thank you.
And thanks, Alex. Harry, where did he go? I don't see him anymore. Okay, Jonathan, we want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is it? Oh,
It's green.
it's not changing colors. Okay, can you hear me now?
That's better.
All right. So overall, I'm okay with the development. A long list of variances is a bit scary, but it's a challenging site, and I think the applicant did a good job of justifying them. site design. One thing I was thinking about was that there's that old road grade going to the old building foundations, and some of that's on the site, some of it's off the site, off the property, so it's kind of challenging how to deal with that. But I think with the site as it's designed, there's still kind of going to be an unofficial kind of access to that area that people are going to use, whether it's residents or other members of the public. So I'm just trying to think of how this building is going to affect that, and would be good to have some sort of pedestrian connection along the river that could use that road grade, maybe do some historical interpretation of those building foundations, and then like stairs up the slope to connect to terminal. Otherwise, it's kind of just being left as an afterthought, that sort of historic foundation and old road grades. So, yeah, I went back when I worked downtown. I used to bike down the hill past this site every day. So I was thinking about it a lot. Saw the owner put a chain link fence along it, saw people cut it down and get in there. So yeah, it's a bit of a dynamic site, just with social pressures there. So yeah, I guess if there's some way to address that old road grade and those building foundations rather than kind of ignoring them, just something I'm thinking about. Building design, I'm okay with it overall. I just noticed in the parking lot layout there was that parking stall labeled ATV. Is that, I don't know all the architectural abbreviations, but is that like an all-terrain vehicle, like a quad or something, or like what? I'm just curious what that meant. So I guess a question for the applicant.
Applicant.
Are we allowed to talk? I'm not sure.
Yes. Ask you a question.
Yeah, it is an ATV. So obviously, I believe, and Sarah could correct me if I'm wrong, it's like we have a 3-year maintenance. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it has to be a net gain, right? So we're actually proposing to look after the area that's not even on our property, which is towards along that roadway or that old roadway. I'll also say that we're still in discussions with the city because personally we'd like to use that roadway as a way to get down, but it's not our property, so we don't show it that way. So that's part of the stuff that's going on in behind the scenes between the city and the province and who has authority of that land. So I know a long time in a previous scheme with a previous developer, there was no interest at that time of the city even taking over the land. And I don't know whether they can, it's just a maintenance issue. Because again, it could have been a beautiful walkway along there too, right as we see number 1 port, I guess, get redeveloped over time. So yeah. It's how else do you bring up any invasives and stuff like that, because there's a lot of maintenance to that. It's one of the reasons why the building is as dense as it is. There's a huge cost to deal with fixing the environmental issues of the part that the building's on, but also the area of all the riparian areas to improve that, right? So we're kind of the custodians of it, and we have to be able to look after that and deal with all the social problems that was on the site that's been created there, right? So in order to keep it friendly, I guess. So, but yeah, I don't know if Kate wants to say anything more, or Sarah. Yeah.
No, thanks. That's good. So yeah, I guess that's a maintenance vehicle. Another thing I thought about was the unit types, and I'd like to see like maybe shifting the ratio to a bit fewer studio and more 2-bedroom, just to make it more family oriented. But I'm not a real estate person who did all the math behind how that works. But yeah, I guess studio apartments, I don't know, seem to be more like student oriented, and this is a bit far from the university, so maybe more family oriented would be better here. Yeah, the landscape design, no concerns there for me. So yeah, that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Hillary?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much to the panel for the remarks so far and for the really thorough presentation. Because of the site and the grade and everything, I think that the height of the building, I'm not concerned about it. I think it will actually blend in pretty well in that area. And yeah, I love the landscaping. I think the viewing platform is a really interesting feature. And I agree with the comment about maybe trying to include more like 2 bedrooms and less studios, just especially because it's right up the street from Maffeo Sutton Park. So really like good kind of family friendly type area. But yeah, generally quite supportive of this project, and yeah, really interested to hear all the comments so far. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Hillary. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for your presentation and thanks for coming back today, finishing this off. And also for clarifying the variances. I'm really happy to see a project being proposed here because I too go through that area a lot, and it's a lovely, as the applicant had said in our last meeting, what a wonderful property it is. It's really an extraordinary property, very special site. However, I just feel there's still some problems with it in terms of the form and character for the neighborhood. I'm not in favor of the height variance, and I think your building would look a lot better as Angie had suggested, a 5-story at least, or at least some work on that those top 2 stories as Hector suggested. So I'm really in agreement with them. I also feel just because of the angle of the building and the height, you're kind of intruding on the neighbor to the north more than you probably would have if you were able to line the building up in the same direction as their building. So you're sort of pushing forward there. I'm also a little concerned about the variance on the roadway where the building corner is like almost right up against the sidewalk. That's a really narrow street, and it's going to stay that way. It's very narrow and very steep going up, but we also have the steep slope across the way of the railroad track. So I just I'm a little concerned that the footprint of the building is bigger than it really has to be. That, you know, a smaller building would be more appropriate in that site. I also think in terms of the form and character, I know you've done a lot with that, but you know, I think some of the comments that were already made, it's a building that could be anywhere in Nanaimo, but you've got this really unique spot. It doesn't look all that different from a kind of regular apartment building that you'd see along Turner Road or something. And that's unfortunate. I think the other project on the other side of the river is a lot more dynamic looking and more interesting than this one. So, you know, again, I just sort of feel like this is a really special spot, and there's an opportunity for something way more interesting than what's being proposed, and slightly smaller, I think would fit in better in this neighborhood. So, and then in addition to that, I want to add, like, I think you've done a really great job with the landscape, what you did provide there. I think that works really well, and thinking about the landscape in terms of that, of a kind of place to enjoy that environment. Kate's done a really great job with that, so really appreciate that. I'm also in concurrence with their comments about changing less studio. That was one of my first thoughts. I looked at it and it's like all studio again. We have so many buildings with just studio apartments, tiny little apartments. And I think 2 and 3 bedroom units would be really nice to have there. And then other than that was the bike storage. I think it was bike storage 1. I think you mentioned in your presentation 2 weeks ago that you were looking at moving that on a different floor. I was looking at that setup, and you have to take your bike through 2 different doors, like out into a hallway and then through another door. It'd be great to have either access directly outside or one door into the garage, so that you're not having to pull through your bike through 2, like into a hallway and then into another door. So just a suggestion on that plan. So anyway, that's sort of where I sit. I'm not in favor of the height variance or the front yard setback. And I am also concerned about the variances that go into the riparian area, especially because this is a very sensitive environmental area with it being like a salmon stream. So I'm a little worried about that as well. So let's just see what recommendations we have and see what kind of what people would like to make as a motion. So I'm seeing here, consider setting back the top 2 stories and varying the material to break up the massing of the building. This is one from Hector. Does that sound okay?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Consider a 5-story instead of a 6-story building. Consider a different approach to the south facade. Now, I wasn't too sure. Hector, you commented on that south facade, and so did you, Angie. I'm not sure exactly what you were trying to express there.
Yeah, that was just there's a color change on the top 2. It's most noticeable on the top 2 floors. And I think just looking at ways to make that a little bit more cohesive, I don't know if that's the right wording, but
visually cohesive.
Yeah.
South facade.
Yeah. I think my comment was a bit vague about it. It was more about like where they have the 3 parking stalls and it's almost like a U-turn to get into the parking lot. I don't know. I was thinking that area probably could have more of potential of a public plaza than just parking stalls. That again, with the social, but again, we can. I don't think it's a big thing. That one we can just leave it out of the comments.
Oh, okay. Because it's quite a different comment. Okay.
Yeah.
Consider adding a pedestrian connection to the old building foundation. Jonathan, did you want that in there, or do you want to just leave that? It sounds like the city, it's not their property, so.
Yeah, I guess Raymond said there's some discussions happening behind the scenes, so can leave that out.
Okay. Consider more 2-bedroom units. I'd say 2 and 3. Consider moving the bike storage so there is direct access to the road or outdoors or garage. Okay, so in terms of the variances, I'm not sure where everybody sits. If people could let me know where they stand on the variances, if you approve them all totally, if there's some you approve but some you don't approve, I'd appreciate that.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let you know that we've been trying to reconnect with Harry, but it sounds like he has to leave the meeting due to technical issues.
Okay, thanks. So somebody want to, Jonathan, what's your thoughts?
I'm okay with the riparian setback. I think I'm fine with, because of, I mean, if they do comply with it, kind of the whole site is undevelopable. So, and it sounds like the environmental consultant said there's a net gain for riparian value or whatever. So it sounds like they did a good job of accommodating that variance.
Okay, what about the other variances? Hector, did you want to?
Yeah, I think when we think about the building height, I know they create a lot of renders from the top of the hill, but actually my biggest concern of the size of the building is from the bottom of the hill. When you're like crossing the little bridge and you're actually on the path on to where is the older building, that's where I think it's going to be very noticeable the height of this building as it is right now. So yeah, I don't think I'm in support of the height variance. Yeah.
Okay. And Angie, where do you sit with it?
Yeah, I think all of the other variances other than height I'm okay with. Just the height one, I think I would rather see that at like kind of meet in the middle in terms of where the variance is there. So yeah.
What about the front yard setback? I have an issue with because it's so close to the sidewalk. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, maybe there's ways they can do it. They can do an overhang, so maybe the lowest floor is actually not as close to the sidewalk, so the rest of the building can kind of almost float in top of the setback.
Yeah.
So in that way, at least when you're like a pedestrian, it doesn't feel as close to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
that could be, but yeah, I agree with your comment. I think it's very close to the sidewalk.
Alex, where do you sit with the variances?
Yeah, I'm still kind of mulling it over in my head because, you know, if a height variance is gonna kind of hinder their ability to develop the property because now it's not making financial sense, then that would be unfortunate. I do agree, though, from Hector's point, you know, if you're at the bottom of the hill and you're looking up, it is going to be really tall. So I'm kind of torn here. Yeah, I'm still thinking this one over.
Well, we need a motion to accept the proposal as presented. We could do that, and then with support for, you know, so many variances or not. And so we need to come up with something and then either vote against it or not. So we can say all the variances, and those of us who don't approve of some of them can vote against the motion. So that would be another way of handling it. So is there anybody here in favor of all the variances? Jonathan, you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alex, you are?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you make a motion to that effect then, that we accept the proposal with support of the variances, and I will vote against it. And I don't know about Hector, but that's sort of where I'll sit. So you want to make that motion? Okay, and we have a seconder for it? Jonathan, all in favor? So we have 1, 2 in favor, and how many against? Okay, so we have three against. And I guess that's the way it'll have to go.
Madam Chair, maybe one thing I may suggest too is considering making a recommendation without reference to the variances. We have seen that in the past from the design panel. So at least there'd be some guidance on the forming character if you felt it was appropriate without a reference to the variances. But I will leave that to you if you feel it's appropriate.
I would still put the recommendations in there, yeah. So it's a motion with the recommendations, with support of the variances, but then there's 3 of us who vote against it.
Exactly. So if the motion has failed because of the variances, the recommendations don't have support of the design panel either.
Yeah, go ahead, Hector. I'm not sure how this is supposed to work. So.
Yeah, I was kind of getting clarification on that. I mean, I agree with Alex. It's a tough decision. It's not an easy decision by any means. It's again, there's very good points on the project, and I see the effort of all the applicants and the challenges on it, but also I think a few months ago we talked about this. Like if we say we approve this with these recommendations, there's no any guarantee that the applicant is going to reduce the scale of the building, right? Or is there like a guarantee if we say, hey, like we approve this, but they need to like reduce the height of the building or the scale of the building? Is that possible, Caleb, or can you clarify?
Maybe Lania would like to clarify this, how we should deal with this, because...
Thank you for the question. Certainly, the recommendations are forwarded to the applicant, and staff do reiterate those in a follow-up letter further in our application review process. We take the time to work through all the recommendations and see how the applicant is able to respond to them, but there is no guarantee that the recommendations will be implemented in the design. Some may or may not be feasible as they do take a look and consider them further, but it is expected that they do consider all of the recommendations.
What I would perhaps suggest, Madam Chair, is if there are certain variances that the panel is not comfortable with, you could exclude those from a recommendation on the forming character. And I know in the past the design panel has done that where there was not support for certain variances, they've excluded those from the recommendation.
Okay, so we'll make a new motion then to accept the proposal as presented with the recommendations and support for all of the variances except the height and the front yard setback. Does that make sense?
That makes sense for me.
How many people are, so somebody want to say they made that motion then? Go ahead, Angie made it and seconder. Hector, all in favor of that motion? Okay, and Alex, you're not in favor of? Yes. Okay, so everybody's in favor of that motion. Okay, well, thank you for your patience and coming back, and appreciate the going through that with you a little more carefully than we would have been able to do that last time. So thank you. And we'll move on to our next presentation, this time a property on, let's see, oops. Caleb will give an introduction to the second project. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yes, thank you. The second item on tonight's agenda is development permit 1379 at 1850 Boxwood Road. Before I do present this one, I wanted to just note to the panel that both this project and the next project are both identified as a personal care facility under the zoning bylaw. But just to recognize that that is kind of an umbrella term in our zoning bylaw, and these are different, in fact, different uses that fall under that term. The other correction I wanted to make on the cover page of the agenda, it did identify 20 units, but I can confirm per the staff design comment that it is in fact 22 units for this project. So what we have for this item for DP 1379 is a 3-story, 22-unit complex care housing project. And there is a concurrent rezoning application to add personal care facility as a site-specific use to this property. The relevant design guidelines are the general development permit area design guidelines, and there have been no variances requested as part of this development permit. Thank you.
And who's presenting this evening?
Hello, good evening. My name is Adam James, principal with Ryder Architecture in Vancouver. I'm joined by members of my team today who've been working on the project as well. So there'll be 3 of us presenting. Kevin, Annabelle, and Melvin. Do you want to introduce yourselves briefly, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Tack with Ryder Architecture, senior designer, and I'm overseeing the project with assistance from Melvin. Melvin? Do you want to introduce yourself, Melvin?
I'll jump in whilst he's just sorting his technology. I'm Annabelle, architect at Ryder Architecture, supporting Kev and Melvin.
Today.
Maybe I'll jump in as well. I'm Tamara Bonamason at MDI Landscape Architects.
Kevin, maybe we should just get going and
yeah, just share your screen whenever you want as well, okay?
Can we share the screen there?
Perfect. Yeah, is that sharing?
Yeah,
not quite yet.
Sorry, I heard my name. My internet's a little shaky right now. But I'm Melvin. I'm the project lead for this project.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Great. So yeah, like I say, Adam James, principal of Ryder Architecture, here today to present with the team 1850 Boxwood Road, complex care and supportive housing for BC Housing. Next slide, please. Before we begin, just to acknowledge that the project is situated in the unceded traditional and ancestral territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation, a Coast Salish people, and that land has deep historical and cultural significance. Kevin, would you like to introduce the project partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the project partners on the development here, we've got Island Health. So they'll be providing the healthcare services, including nursing and primary care within the facility. We've got BC Housing, who will be leading the development and be working to develop a contract with the operator, who is the third party here identified as to be determined. And we're working alongside Island Health and BC Housing to determine who the operator of the project will be. Next slide. And as Caleb mentioned previously, the big component here for the residential care is a new housing typology called complex care. And so it's a housing typology that's aimed at providing individuals with increased or significant mental health and substance abuse complexities. So we're looking to provide safe and stable housing for these residents who are often also at times experiencing homelessness or are at risk of homelessness. And we've identified, or I guess the provincial government has identified this as part of their homeless strategy, and it's under represented population that's being underserved presently. So that's one of the reasons why we're providing this type of housing in this proposal. Next slide. And to support the needs and various complexities of that complex care housing, we've identified 6 project goals that we're going to follow through from early concept stage that Annabelle and Melvin will talk about later on. But of the project goals, we're looking to increase and provide increased livability, health and well-being to all residents on the site. We also want to have an increased connection to nature, so rehabilitating some of the landscape, providing that connection for residents to experience and connect to nature. Also looking to build and foster community in a sense of not only within the community adjacent, but looking as well inside to the community of the residents within the building. We also want to look at high performance and climate resilience. So acknowledging our current climate situation, we want to future-proof and design for that to provide that the highest level of thermal comfort and performance for the building. And that kind of bleeds into the next one, where we want to talk about providing a safe space for residents to heal and feel comfortable, and then they can provide a place to call home. And that leads into the 6th point, where we want it to be adaptable and accessible. And so it provides that home for a long time, and it allows residents the opportunity to age in place and be there as long as they need to be there. So those are the main project goals that Annabelle is going to expand on as she talks through the project.
Great. Yeah, so the site we're talking about is 1850 Boxwood Road in Nanaimo, which you'll see here is within an industrial area surrounded by residential areas. So the site has several unique features, including a gentle slope leading to a 2-story retaining wall at the northern edge, paired with a wooden staircase that's part of a public pathway to the east of the site. Although potentially a bit more challenging when resolving access and grading, it's also presented a nice opportunity to reduce the perceived height of the building and incorporate a south-facing landscaped outdoor amenity courtyard. We're also striving to create a relationship to the existing pedestrian pathway and give something back to the local community through our proposed landscape design, which Tam will expand on in a bit. But yeah, we'll be also keeping the existing curb let down for vehicles to access the site, making use of the new infrastructure around Boxwood Road. So this zoning map highlights how the site lies within an industrial zone on the boundary of a community and residential area. The City of Nanaimo's City Plan's affordable housing policy considers affordable and supportive housing in light industrial zones. So we've therefore submitted a rezoning application, as Caleb described. The rezoning will be for a change of use within the existing I3 high-tech industrial zone to permit a 3-story, 22-unit personal care facility. So to begin our design process, we developed the massing on the site, starting with the knowledge that we wanted to accommodate staff parking and a private amenity courtyard. Following detailed sonar analysis, we then refined the form to maximize daylight penetration into the courtyard by rotating the east-west building wing by 35 degrees. By creating this boomerang shape, the courtyard receives more sunlight to all portions of the courtyard throughout the year. And further solar analysis has highlighted that due to our building only being 3 stories and having setbacks on all sides, the impact on neighbouring properties through overshadowing is limited in summer and equinox. So from this point, we could then further articulate the mass to reflect our project goals, for example, by proposing gable roof forms to create a hometown appearance that breaks down the form to a human scale and creates a home-like feel for the tenants. So moving on to the floor plans, these also reflect our project goals. The core and shared spaces on level 1 consider various factors such as creating a home-like environment, fostering community engagement, and maintaining access control. So a single point of entry is provided through the vestibule, where staff in the front office can greet and provide access to visitors. Around the main entry, most of the administrative rooms are located, offering sight lines in multiple directions, and then clinical spaces are located at the rear of the building for privacy and to provide safe spaces for healing. The large amenity spaces include a cultural room, a large common room, a dining room, and a commercial kitchen. The large common area will serve as the largest indoor space for programs, events, and it also features direct access into the private courtyard to create this connection to nature. And then upon arriving onto the residential floors via the elevators, residents meet this central node, which includes a smaller shared spaces, which includes a small common area, again, overlooking the courtyard. The overall building design therefore tries to have a variety of scales. And it was an approach we chose to try and accommodate diverse needs and preferences of tenants, so catering to those who may prefer smaller groups or larger groups. Which then links into the layout of our residential units, which we've based on a cluster model, which is a research-based organizational technique used when designing residential facilities tailored towards mental health. But each wing will be grouped in a small cluster of 5 units so that small communities can be formed within the building, as this can be more conducive for promoting socialization between neighbors and alleviating social isolation. So being part of a smaller community like this can provide tenants with a sense of security, identity, and an internal support system. So we've aimed to promote these clusters both in the internal organisation of the building layout, but also with the external appearance, which Melvin's going to expand on now.
Great, thank you, Annabelle. So when we're doing the design process, we're focused on creating a form of character that respects the history of the site, understands the indigenous design, integrates with the neighboring aesthetics, and fosters a sense of community and home for the tenants. Prior to the city of Nanaimo being formed, the First Nations lived in the area used a lot of gable building forms for their buildings, and as well as cedar, and we still see that in today's buildings. For gable roof forms, this is quite prominent in Nanaimo, both for its practical rainwater management capabilities, as well as providing a sense of home. The use of cedar is also one of the most common tree species in and around Nanaimo, and it's both heavily used by the First Nations, and we're going to also be exploring ways on how to integrate the cedar wood as well as the leaf colors within our building. And lastly is the metal cladding, where we're trying to respect the site's neighboring industrial adjacencies, and we can also see this use in the adjacent residential building. Next slide, please. So we can see this in the elevations that provides the sense of place and roof forms. Regarding the sense of home and identity for the tenants, as Annabelle mentioned, the success of the clusters, we define this by the gable roof forms that provide a townhome scale, as well as providing the green and metal cladding for these clusters. You can also see that there are multiple colors for the window surrounds at the dwelling units. This reinforces the home-like environment, where we use to help the tenants to identify where the units are. And this happens both on the exterior and in the interior. So for example, if we have a green and metal cladding on the exterior, that will also occur on the interior corridor walls. And then the windows colors will also reflect on the unit entry doors. As for the cedar colors, that's providing warmth and a welcoming feeling for both the staff and amenity areas, and also provides the important adjacencies for the entry, the main entry and the courtyard. Next slide, please. So you can see this reinforced in the renderings that provides a sense of depth of the roof form, the color, and the window shades, and from two different perspectives from Boxford, both the east and the west corner. Next slide. So just to give a sense of arrival and wayfinding for this project, there are 2 main approaches. One is from the south along Boxford Road. This is the main entrance. And one of the questions that we asked ourselves is, how do we draw people into this main entrance? So one of the reasons that I provided earlier is the warm sense of the cedar, but also is the canopy that we're providing. So you can see that it starts on the west and it wraps over into the east wall. As it would help draw people into that east corner. And also the canopy will provide a practical use of shading the windows on that ground floor. And from that north side, which is on the bottom right of the screen, is from the pedestrian pathway. So as people walk down this pathway, they can see the unique visual cue of that canopy wrap. And then Tam from MDI will discuss about that detail later in the landscape approach. Next slide, please. And lastly, as a central node in the shared amenities, this is the main area where we expect tenants to gather and enjoy, and as well as have a sense of security within the space, also reinforcing that home-like and healing environment that we've talked about. From this perspective, you can see both of the clusters wrapping around the courtyard. This also maximizes staff and tenant sightlines into the courtyard. It's also important that we provide this strong connection between the indoor and the outdoor amenities, both from the pedestrian access point of view, but also that cedar warmth that I talked about, as well as providing large windows for the sightlines. Now I'm going to pass it over to Tam.
Thanks so much, Melvin. That's a great segue into the landscape. And I think Melvin touched on a lot of really important points that we're kind of playing off of here around providing that sense of home for people. So kind of keeping it like a residential type of environment, and also the strong connection between the building and the building and the landscape. So that people have, visual access out, easy access inside and out, and then can get out into the garden and enjoy that space and be really actively engaged with that space. There's so much research now that shows how important access to nature and interaction with nature is for healing, and that it really can improve people's mental health. So we wanted to make that a really strong component of this project. You'll see that the inner courtyard space, it's almost like a backyard type of space. It has a fence around it to create a kind of a private space for the residents. But within that space, we've thought a lot about programming it with different ways that people can use it. So we've got a combination of small seating nooks, community gardening spaces that can be part of a therapeutic program, more open lawn spaces, covered pergola for outdoor dining, and we're providing a mix of shaded and sunny spaces. A really important aspect to consider for this type of design is ensuring that it feels really safe in the space and that there are clear sightlines throughout. So the plantings closer to the building are lower, kind of indigenous plantings, and then as you go away from the building on the outside edges, that's where we have our fences and a retaining wall that slopes up and some fast-growing trees. So if you're kind of in the common dining space inside or inside the common areas of the building, you have a clear view out and you can see a lot of the activity that's happening in there. And that is one of the features that helps the space feel safe and healing for all users. And one important aspect of that too is the smoking shelter. We've located that in a place where it can actually be seen easily from within the building and accessed easily by patients, but we're balancing that need to have it close but not too close, so that those who don't want to smoke aren't exposed to too much smoke. So that one's been a bit of a balancing act. The outside of the site, kind of outside of that courtyard, is all about providing a friendly face to the community and making sure that this building feels like it's contributing and adding to the community and providing some opportunities for the residents to hopefully have positive interactions with members of the surrounding community. So we have a little basketball hoop that's kind of doubling up in the loading zone. And one of my favorite aspects of the design is a large rain garden right at the corner between the pedestrian pathway and Boxwood Road. So all of the stormwater from the roof and the hard surfaces of the site will be directed there. And that will create a really beautiful, special planted feature that is kind of the first thing that you see as you're approaching the site, and also a really key amenity, I think, to improve that pedestrian pathway. And we've also provided connections from the pedestrian pathway to Boxwood Road, which will kind of be a semi-public cut through, and helps that entry plaza feel more connected both to the pathway and to Boxwood Road. And one of the aspects that we've been kind of trying to work on is how to make that entry plaza pop a little more and make sure that it's easy to see the front doors. So I know there's suggestions around perhaps adding benches to those spaces. So those are the kind of trying to find a way to emphasize that entry plaza is something that we've been working on as well. And And finally, I'll just add that we're proposing, I think it's 56 trees on this project, something like that. We have quite a bit of soil volume and lots of space for trees, and the site used to be forested, so we're trying to bring back a lot of the tree cover to the project site. Yeah, so with that, I'll turn it over. I think that's the end of our presentation, so I'll turn it over for questions, and I'm happy to provide more detailed information if there's someone that wants to know a bit more about the specific plants or something like that.
Great. Thanks, Tam. Yeah, that concludes our presentation. Forgot to mention as well that Scott Lewis from Appleton Martin is here as well. If there should be any utility questions that might come up. But yeah, welcome comments and questions.
Great, thank you, Adam. Okay, if you could stop sharing your screen, I guess that'd be the next thing. And panel, does anybody have any questions of staff about this property, this project? Okay, seeing none, we can, I guess, get going here. Who do we have here? Find the right pace. Hector, I guess you're the first on the list there.
Thanks, Madam Chair. No, I agree. I really like the project. I think for the users, this has a lot of great concepts. It kind of puts me at smile to see the colors to be used in a meaningful and kind of tasteful way, and I think blends really good with this light industrial boundary with a residential area. Again, I pass on that road every day or almost every day, so yeah, looking forward to see this building getting built. So good luck. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Hector. Angie, want to go ahead?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, so thanks for the presentation, for going through how the site will work for us. I think that the vertical orientation of the metal siding there works really well. Like Hector said, it's kind of this unique area on the boundary between residential and industrial. It's a bit unusual to see industrially zoned properties used for these more residential type uses, but I think this site particularly is really is in a good location to have that transition. I think overall the colors of the building, like the palette it works really well. I do think the balconies, the colors chosen there to create some distinction, I think that's a really interesting concept, and I think that could really bring a lot to the building. I think that the colors chosen, maybe there's just an opportunity to relook at those just to see if there's a way to kind of make those a bit more distinct while still being more kind of in that more neutral palette. So that would be maybe one recommendation. The outdoor space I think works really well. I was really pleased to see like the gardens and everything there as well. And I think there was a mention of, they're going to be edible gardens. So just great to see particularly for a vulnerable population. The shades over the windows, I think, are like particularly on the, southwest and east facades there, I think are great to see just to help with overheating concerns in the future as well. I did think the entrance was not clear where it was, and I think that is something, it's great to hear, that you're already working on it, but I think doing something there to just with the overhang, it's quite dark, it seems, and so just doing something there to help that area pop will, I think, be a benefit. My only question actually was just, and I may have missed it in the documentation here, but just what type of fencing is being used around the property?
It would just be a 6-foot height wood fence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all my comments. So yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation, and look forward to seeing this one go through.
Thanks, Angie. Jonathan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I also live not too far from here and use that public walkway and stairs at least once a week. So I am by here a bit. So for the site design, there's a staff comment about relocating the smoking shelter. I do agree it's good to have it far away from the public pathway, just so that the smoke doesn't interfere with that public use. So where it is now is kind of like as far away as you can get from the public pathway, which is good. But I did find it a little ironic that the smoking shelter was right next to the sensory seating nook, because it'll be a big part of the sensory experience if there's smoke there, which is maybe not ideal for that sensory seating nook. So maybe considering a different location for that seating nook. But definitely keeping it far away from the public pathway. The building design, yeah, I like the idea of kind of combining the industrial and residential look. I just felt like maybe my initial impression was maybe it's a little too far to the industrial side, and maybe shifting it a bit more to the residential look might look better, since it is like, you know, a residential use, people living there. Maybe it was just like the gray, like 3 stories of the gray vertical siding looked a bit too like warehouse or shed-like to me. So if there's maybe a way to address that and make that look a little more residential. The colors around the windows, there was a staff comment about that. It is nice to have some bright color there. I just thought maybe it's a bit much, just having like the mix of the colors on each of the sort of building masses. So maybe a way to sort of meet in the middle there would be to, you know, use one color, like on one siding type, have all the same window color, and on a different siding color, have a different color of the window framing, just so that it still has that color contrast, but is a bit more cohesive. Rather, it kind of feels a little random and maybe clashes a bit the way it is now to my initial eye. For the landscape, there's a staff comment about adding seating to the entry plaza. Normally, I'm a big fan of that. I think maybe here, keeping the seating to the amenity area is a good idea, just to encourage the residents to congregate in the more private part of the site, whereas the entry plaza is close to the public walkway. I think it could be a good idea to sort of encourage the gathering of the residents in the more private area. You know, just considering the residential use across from the walkway, and, you know, maybe some of those residents moved there expecting an industrial development here and not like a supportive housing complex. So yeah, keeping the seating areas to the more private amenity space, I think, might be better in this case, which is what the design here is. So I'm kind of just maybe pushing back against the city or the staff comment on that. For the planting plan, yeah, overall looks like a good concept. I'm just thinking about the plants on the terraced wall. There's a lot of the rose shrubs there, and I'm thinking it would be good to consider having some shrubs there that are evergreen, just so that you get the year-round screening of the wall. Because if it's just all the roses, then in the winter you kind of lose that screening of the wall, of the tall wall. So, and the evergreen ground cover that's used on those terraces is pretty low, so you may not really see that from down below. Yeah, so my recommendation there would be just to add some evergreen shrubs on the terraced planting beds. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Alex, you want to go?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, I like it. I like the design overall. Like the window coverings are nice. You know, adds nice pops of color, a little bit of shading. It's, yeah, a nice contemporary design feature. I think the form and massing will complement the site very well. Like the adjacent property is very similar in height and overall massing, so it'll fit in there well. I like the emphasis of native plants. I like that. Really, my only comment is I'm like the loading slash storage slash basketball hoop area. I was just wondering if that might be just like a bit too busy or crowded, but I guess I'd have to see like a rendering of it to like really kind of understand what's going on there. But yeah, that's really my only comment. But I like the project overall. I think it's going to be a really nice use of the space, and it'll fit in nicely there.
Thanks, Alex. Hillary?
Yeah, thank you. I was really keen to see this project come forward, and I think the look of it is quite nice and striking a good balance. I do like the pops of color and the materials that have been chosen. It's unique. It's got kind of a fun look to it. Yeah, I think a lot of mindfulness is put into the design. I do think locating the smoking in a different section is good, but as Jonathan pointed out, close to that sensory nook is maybe not particularly ideal. But other than that, I also appreciate all the staff comments on this and looking forward to seeing it happen. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Hillary. That's everybody. Okay. So yeah, thank you for your presentation. Great to see more care facilities coming to Nanaimo. And I wasn't actually familiar with this property. I drove by and had a look at it, and I thought it was all industrial at first. Didn't realize there was the housing project next to it. And I think you've done a really, created a really thoughtful design that really fits well into this mixed-use neighborhood. It doesn't look institutional. It's not totally residential, and it's not totally industrial. And I think you've done a really beautiful approach to sort of blending all those different aspects, which this building has to sort of fit into in this sort of strange neighborhood that it's in. So it actually almost has kind of a Nordic Scandinavian look, and I really do like I wouldn't change anything on there on the outside at all. I quite like the little bits of color and the little elements around the windows. I think they just really they perk it up just enough, and it's sort of a gentle building. It's not overwhelming, but it fits in very well, and I think you've done a great job with it. My only question was, do you know what's happening to the property next door on the other side? Nobody knows yet? Okay, because I see your smoking shelter and some of your outbuildings, your garbage building, and that are right up on the property line. So I don't know what would happen if somebody else builds there and how that works, but I don't know if you need to worry about that. So that would be my only concern. Maybe it's a little too close depending what ends up there beside you. But anyway, so other than that, I don't really have any changes to add. So I think we can just then summarize our recommendations. We had some that consider the color selection on the facade to make it more distinct and cohesive. Now, I kind of joined Angie's and Jonathan's comment there. I don't really necessarily agree with that. I don't think you need to do much, but if you guys want to leave that comment in there, Jonathan and Angie, does that work for you if I put that together?
Yeah, I think so. That even Jonathan's idea of having one color per facade type, I think is might do the trick of just simplifying it a little bit.
Yeah, so I thought that just kind of generalizes both your comment and his, so we could put that in there. Consider ways to highlight the entrance. Consider relocating the sensory seating nook away from the smoking shelter, or was it moving the smoking shelter away from the nook?
As you said, it is good with me.
Okay. Consider ways to emphasize the residential appearance of the building. I don't know, do we need that? Or Jonathan, how strongly do you feel?
No one else had concerns about that, so you can leave that out.
Okay. And consider adding evergreen shrubs on the terrace walls so there is some greenery all year. And did I miss anything? No? Okay, so that's 4 recommendations. If I can have a motion to accept the project as presented with those 4 recommendations. Somebody want a motion? Angie, seconder Jonathan, all in favor? Great, good. So thank you very much for coming and good luck with the project. Look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. It's appreciated.
Okay. So we have a second project to look at, another third project to look at tonight, one on Bryden Street and Terminal, and Caleb again will introduce that one. So go ahead, Caleb.
Yes, thank you. This third item on tonight's agenda is Development Permit 1381. This is for a proposed property on the corner of Bryden Street and Terminal Avenue North. Currently, it is made up of a number of properties addressed at 250 Terminal Avenue, 266 Bryden Street, and 268 Bryden Street. There is another rezoning for this project. There is rezoning to a comprehensive development zone, and that rezoning has received third reading, but has not yet been adopted. The proposal here is for a 5-story supportive housing building with 50 dwelling units. And again, this does fall under the personal care facility use as defined in the City of Nanaimo's zoning bylaw. Relevant design guidelines are the general DP area design guidelines, as well as the Newcastle and Brecon neighborhood plan design guidelines. No variances have been requested for this development permit. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Caleb. And who's presenting this evening? To turn your mic on.
We are. My name is Ron Hart. We're the architects for the outfit. Graham will be doing most of the talking. He's on our team here. We've worked with Caleb over the last little while and his team to develop the entire site, as he's mentioned. I think you alluded to that. There's actually 2 properties adjacent to each other, which involved a change of actual property lines. And the design is somewhat driven by that, I guess. It's contextual. Its context is not only the surrounding properties, but the entire site as one. So we'll just touch on that, and then we'll go into the actual supportive housing development that Graham will describe in full, and then take your questions and whatnot. So I'll pass it over to Graham here, and he can go through it.
Good evening. Thanks, Caleb, for the introduction. Thanks, Ron, and thanks, Madam Chair. So as Caleb mentioned, this is a supportive housing building providing 50 units, 2 definitive accessible units, 48 adaptable units. Our goals for this project, over and above housing 50 people, is to help the Newcastle neighborhood sort of block the noise from Terminal Avenue, which is a big roadway, quite noisy. So we did have a meeting with the neighborhood association where we got a chance to talk to them about this project and our goals and how we were forming the building to help them rather than install something that is going to impact them negatively. Okay. So just so we're all understand, Terminal Avenue North, we're just north of the downtown, so that Terminal Avenue street is a connector between the downtown core and the highway to the rest of Vancouver Island. So we zoom into our site, we can see it's directly adjacent to Terminal Avenue, and so we are trying and around that. So currently it is residential zoned and corridor 2 and 3 zoned to the property, and we are rezoning it to a CD14, which will have proposed lot A to the north and proposed lot B to the south, which is the one we're developing, which is one we have the development permit in for that we're discussing tonight. Surrounding that, we have some commercial hotels and motels, some commercial buildings, including restaurants and a lawyer's office, and then more fulsome residential surrounding us. So there's single-family homes to the east, and there's some multi-family residential to the north. And then looking at that, if we and kind of considering the project as a whole with the redevelopment of both sides of that site, to the south on the right-hand side, we have our supportive housing building, and to the north, a proposed affordable housing building. And we show them both not because the other one's designed, but just so you know that the consideration of siting the building took into account this future use as an affordable housing project on the north side of the site. In context with the rest of the street along Terminal Avenue, to the south, there's a few restaurants and commercial buildings, and to the north, we have a stepped up 4-story residential building, and kind of in the background on Vancouver Avenue, a 8 or 9-story residential building. And then looking at the building from the south, it's creating a boundary between the loud Terminal Avenue there to the west and the residential, quieter Newcastle neighborhood to the east. So if we look at the site plan of just the supportive housing building, and from now, we won't talk much about the affordable housing building since it's not part of this discussion really. Just kind of showing you the siting. We've pushed the building towards Terminal Avenue as much as we could, and to the south towards Bryden as much as we could. And we did that for 2 reasons. One, again, we wanted to protect Newcastle neighborhood from those noises of Terminal Avenue, but also we wanted to pull that building as far back away from the residential, from the single-family residential houses on the east, and creating both a distance buffer, but as you'll see a little later on, a landscape buffer protecting that neighborhood from this larger building. So part of the site itself is sloped from south to north upwards, and we've played with that slope to kind of, as best we can, minimize the impact of our 5-story building. And so we've set it back in two planes on the 5th floor, both on the south and on the east side. So as you're coming up Terminal Avenue from downtown, it presents itself as a 4-story building, and then as residents of Newcastle neighborhood are looking at the building from the east, they'll be presented with a 4-story building rather than a 5-story building. And in addition to just step backs, there is some planting on the fifth floor to further buffer and screen that upper story, so it doesn't present as a 5-story building to those residents. Materially, we've been looking at keeping the building quite light and bright with a lighter white hardy panel, and then on top of a concrete base. So it is a concrete platform building with lightwood framing above. We designed the building considering it as potentially being built in several different ways, whether it's lightwood frame or modular construction. And part of the facade treatment is to minimize the kind of compartmentalized look that a modular building might present. And so that's why you see the fins are colored fins that are shading windows, kind of creating an irregular rhythm to the building to kind of obfuscate or hide the kind of boxy units that you might see in a modular building. Along the front entrance on Bryden Street, we transitioned from the concrete base to a cement panel that is a bit more heavy duty than the Hardy panel, an Oco Skin or similar that has a through color. It's a bit more resilient, and if it does get chipped or cracked, then you're going to see the same color throughout. So it's not going to be an obvious blemish. And so that was just one, we wanted to warm up the entrance, so it was a bit more wood-like, but also resilient enough for any rough damage that it might receive. Also along the front, along Bryden Street, we have a 4-foot painted black metal fence that also incorporates a car gate. This was a request that we incorporated from BC Housing to kind of delineate the site with that fencing, but also limit access as best we could without having a super tall fence or anything like that. So there is fencing along that side. The choice of colors for the fins was, again, to be light and bright and to keep it pleasant and happy and really present this as you come up Terminal Avenue. This is sort of the first thing you see as you come out of downtown, you come around a corner and you see this sort of box, and we wanted to limit the sort of the boxiness, and we wanted to create some texture there and texture through color and texture through the three-dimensionality of those fins. On the inside, on the east side of the building, that Oco Skin continues, since that is residential outdoor amenity space. It's a covered walkway adjacent to the parking lot. And as you get further into the site, that building does scoop away to open up more outdoor amenity space, though we're quite limited with how much we can put on the site. So again, this is the same image we presented right at the beginning, so you kind of get an idea of how that building sits compared to the raising grade along Terminal Avenue. And then on the inside of the site, the covered walkway and kind of the more open space in there. And then the idea of screening the residential Newcastle neighborhood with a 9-foot fence, which we're proposing to be cedar to keep it less industrial, less institutional, and then a landscape screening, 1.8 meter screening in addition to that. And you can get a better sense of that in the landscape planning. So one thing you'll notice is that there's a lot of hardscape and very little softscape. And so we've really tried to make the softscape at the north end of the building like a very welcoming space. It is in relation to the dining area. It's right next to it, so you can see out and see what's going on there. You have access directly to that shaded garden from the dining space, as well as to the east, you have access to picnic tables and other secure tables and seats under that covered walkway from the dining area. From there, there's also the smoking shelter adjacent to the long-term bike storage and our garbage and recycling shelter at the end of the drive aisle. In terms of the planting, unfortunately, our landscape architect couldn't be here tonight, but he did send us along some notes so I can relay some of the intention. We do have some shrubbery and small trees along the terminal side. So part of the rezoning was a 5-meter road dedication, which narrowed our site a bit, but does create a much nicer sidewalk experience as people walk down Terminal Avenue. And so we're trying to make that a bit more pleasant by adding small trees and adding shrubs to make it more of a tree-lined walkway. and those trees then come around the building here, protecting this resident lounge that is glazed all around. So in the summer, it'll be protected from the sun, with the help of the overhang of the rest of the building, of the upper stories of the building. And then in winter, they should shed their leaves, and I don't believe there's any evergreen trees, evergreen bushes there. And again, we have shrubbery and some larger trees in our 1.8 meter landscape buffer to again help screen and help reduce the noise between our site and the neighboring and the neighbors to the east. Our entryway we've defined with some lights, with that transition from the concrete to the Yoko skin to the more warm wood texture, as well as some custom wood block furnishings for people to be able to come and sit down before they make their way inside the building. Adjacent to that is also short-term bike storage. And then related to that, because we did step back the building on the 5th floor, that gave us the opportunity to create a rooftop patio on the 5th floor. And we've taken some of those ideas of the built-in furnishings on the ground level up to this patio, as well as the kind of the native plants that will be used within the landscape plan in and around the exterior of that patio. So we create a buffer, a kind of a safety buffer between the edge of the building and the patio, and there'll be further glazed guardrails surrounding that. And that's just a better idea. And unless Ron has anything else to add, that's where I'll leave it for now. Thank you so much.
I think you covered it, Graham. Thank you very much. We're open to questions. Maybe we can move back to a prettier picture.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so panel, does anybody have any questions of staff or want anything clarification on this project first before we get going? No? Okay, I was just going to ask the applicant if they, in the second stage, you have your landscape area, that the private amenity area, is that going to connect with an amenity area in the second building eventually? Like, will they be merged and open, or will they be fenced off?
There'll be basically a retaining wall. There's our proposal for the rezoning. So that had, really have no bearing on what actually comes next, but was that there would be underground parking. But because of the slope difference, because of the elevation difference between the two sides of the site, there would be necessarily a retaining wall. And so there would be no connection between the two sites. And part of that is for safety, considering the two different groups of people that would be living, one more supportive residents versus people living in affordable housing.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Angie, would you like to go?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't have too many comments. I think it's I think that the building is, again, like well cited. I think it's great that it's kind of closer to the Terminal Avenue side, and then it gives the neighbors on the I guess it would be the east side there a bit more separation from the building. I think the Finns have done exactly what you said, is they've created this rhythm that kind of breaks up the boxy look of the building, and I think the colors chosen are unique to the city. You don't really see that blend around right now, but I think they're all very complementary, so that's great. Let's see here. I was curious with the gated parking lot area there. I was curious if that gate is motorized, or if there's going to be a bit of a noise consideration for the neighbors there, if that gate is opening and closing frequently, or if it's kind of just left open during the day and maybe closed at night, or what that might be, but I don't know if you have any insight as to what the intention is there, but I would maybe be, just consider.
It's more of an operational question, I think, but it was something that was asked for by the potential operators of this site. I'm not sure whether that's been confirmed yet or not. There was an operator at play at the very outset, and then they may have come back. I'm not sure. We'd have to defer to BC Housing to confirm that. However, the security of the park and security of the site, just kind of delineating the site, keep providing enough amenity within the site, both within and outside, so that people don't necessarily have to sort of hang around outside in the front yard, which is, offers a kind of level of privacy to people, I guess, within the community there, but also for the public, so that there's an option where you hang out, kind of thing. The gate is part of that perimeter, I guess. And I don't anticipate, in my understanding and my experience with other similar sites in other jurisdictions, that it will be opening and closing all the time. There's sort of very few cars coming and going. There's some service providers that come and go from the site, but generally speaking, there will be 3 or 4 staff on site all the time, 2 overnight. Not a high rate of cars in and out, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it maybe just something to consider is just to think about, like, if that is going to be opening through the night or something, then if there's an option to maybe it comes back and there's a couple of parking spots outside of that gated area that could be used, or some sort of combination there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So a similar site in Vernon has a couple of spots outside for visitors. Within, we were kind of constrained by the trying not to change the prescribed amount of parking on the site, and we were asked. We were going to share a little bit, to Mary's earlier comment, at one point, some of the parking to the north in the underground for staff. But I think BC Housing, properly saw fit to kind of free up the uses of both sites instead of entangling them for the long term. And we then, made sure we had the full complement of parking required by the city. I don't know that we even anticipate them all being used.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think that the fence that's proposed is a fairly low fence, and it doesn't look intrusive in the neighborhood at all. So I think that's helpful as well. But yeah, that's all my comments. I think it's I think it's been very thoughtfully designed, and thanks for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Angie. Hector?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a nice project. I really like the setbacks, also the carving on the lower floors. That is just not like a square. You have this light curving on the patio. My only question for the applicant is, it's kind of a technical one in terms of the guardrail on the rooftop. What's the height of that guardrail? Is that like a 1.5 meters or 1.2 meters?
I think it could be 1.2 because it is set back from the edge of the parapet with the planters and the planting up there. Of course, if it needs to be taller upon a further review, when this project moves towards building permit, we can review that then. But I believe that it could be just 1.2 meters, 42 inches or so.
Yeah. My question was not so much related to the building permit, but more for the users. I think in a lot of these supportive housings, we don't see balconies or rooftops, so that's the only reason I was kind of having that question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I mean, pertinent to this discussion, I think I think we could end up with a higher railing there, just especially if there's climbable items on that balcony. But I think we will endeavor to make it more transparent. I think is the answer that's kind of pertinent to this to accentuate or to reinforce the sort of 4-story appearance of the building as you proceed up to the north on Terminal.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I really like the vertical slats, as you say. It kind of breaks the classic prefab looking of a lot of these buildings. And overall, I don't have any more comments. So good luck with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hector. Alex, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I really like the color palette. I like the white with the pastel vertical fins. I think it's a nice look. And it's kind of like, you know, because it's a main thoroughfare, people passing through Nanaimo. And yeah, I think it's nice. Also, I think the set or the buffer, the landscape buffer between Terminal and the building is appropriate. I think it'll help with sound absorption from, you know, the busy street, and also it'll look nice. I have one comment at the entry of the building. You have two metal lights at the entry, and my only concern there is it's like a high contact point area. It's right on the corner. I feel like people are going to be tapping it with their keys. They're going to be bumping it accidentally. It could get tagged up. So my only recommendation is maybe instead of those like standard metal towers, you do some sort of a lighting feature that will still illuminate, you know, the walkway, but in a different way. So over time, it will not look all banged up. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Alex. Jonathan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a staff comment about the long-term bike parking and whether it's covered. I can't remember if that was mentioned in the presentation, but a question for the applicant if that's the case or not.
Yes, we focus more on the building, obviously, but the long-term bike storage will be covered. Would have it would not be conditioned, but it would be enclosed, and the bikes would be generally protected.
Okay, thank you. Building design, I like it. I think the color choice on the fins looks really nice. And landscape design. I guess not too much from me, but I did notice in some of the earlier drawings in the package, there was a different bike rack type in the long-term area versus the short-term near the entrance. But it looks like in the later drawings, the ones near the entrance are changed to match the long-term. I just wanted, if you could clarify which bike racks used near the building entrance. So a question for the applicant.
That's an excellent question. I don't know if I have a satisfactory answer for you. I think it was an idea of a bike rack. I can imagine that we would see either kind of the upside down U-shaped ones or the spiral ones at the front. Given that the long-term bike storage, would be enclosed, would be resident access only, we could see the same kind of bike rack. I've seen similar kind of bike racks for long-term storage as with kind of a short-term storage, bike storage that you see there. But I guess I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I was gonna make a recommendation, I'd just say consider using those the same ones that you used in the long term at the front as well. So the inverted U style, rather than a spiral style. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would generally prefer the inverted U style myself as someone who has locked up to my bike before. So.
Okay. Yeah, the landscape plan, plant species, no concerns from me there. So, yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hillary?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and to the panel for the comments so far. I know we haven't actually finalized rezoning on this site, so I guess it feels a little bit awkward to me to be weighing in at this point, but I note that some conditions of the rezoning, like the 2.4 meter fence, are included, which is good, and the smoking area being moved to the north side of the building. I wondered, the staff report says that there's 50 dwelling units, but there's 52 across all 5 floors, and I think that's because 2 of them are meant to be converted into amenity spaces. Do those units need to look any differently in this plan in order for them to become amenity spaces? I guess that's a question that I wanted to ask at the beginning.
So we know that we want 50 units. We know we have space for 52 units because we have space for 50 units on the upper floors, but we did want to provide some additional interior amenity spaces throughout the building, as well as provide for a couple of either higher support needs people or accessible units on the main floor, so that people so that if there were a couple of people who they didn't necessarily want to go up the elevators or up the stairs or anything, or wanted to be closer to staff. So that was the idea there. Essentially, there would be a couple of units throughout the second through fourth stories. Sorry, kind of on the south side of the building that would be converted into more of an amenity area, with the caveat that we might convert one of the units on the 5th floor rather than that's kind of adjacent to the patio, so that there's kind of an amenity room that is adjacent to that outdoor space that can then be used as some sort of community room or cultural room as needed from whoever the operator ends up being.
Okay, that's helpful. And then with the 5th floor amenity space, it's stepped back from the edge of the building, which is good to see, so that there's less overlook onto neighboring properties. And you're talking about already making the balcony railing potentially a little bit higher, so I was glad to hear that covered. Are there still plans for a possible community amenity contribution for a crosswalk at Terminal in Mount Benson? I'm just trying to think about that in the context of the site design.
I can respond to that. So yes, through the rezoning, there was a covenant that if any of the units do not meet the definition of affordable housing over the overall site, then we would be looking at a contribution towards that intersection. This project, we would not expect any of the units to meet that definition, but the property to the north, the affordable housing site, there's still potential that there could be units there that would trigger the community amenity contribution.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. With the 10 parking spaces that are on the site, those are probably going to be taken up by staff and community support personnel. Is there any expectation that any of the residents might own a car and where they may park?
At the moment, not from us, and the 10 and as you know, we don't have any variances, so the 10 is parking spaces is consistent with 50 units of supportive housing at 0.2 per unit. But we also don't expect all 10 of those spaces to be taken up by staff. When we were working with a previous group that was going to be operating the building, they expressed that they didn't need 10 parking spots.
Okay. I note there is a staff comment to avoid gating where possible along public frontages. I'm just wondering if that is contradictory at all to the draft form and character guidelines, which touch on the need for gates on underground or undercover parking areas as a SEPTED measure. So yeah, that's a question to me. And then from the plans, as far as lighting, what's proposed for the east side that's closest to the residences? Is there mindfulness around making sure that lights aren't shining into those houses on that east side?
Yeah, I think primarily lighting, again, because that building is so stepped back from the east side, even with some sconce lights mounted to the side of the building, the upper floors, I think we can effectively light just the parking lot without worry of spilling over into the neighboring properties. And with the help of that 9-foot fence and additional landscape shading that we'll be doing on that east 1.8 meter planting zone, I think that will take care of any worry of that kind of light pollution from the building.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, overall, I like the siting of the building on the property, and I think the color palette is great. Low-key, big fan of the pink colors that are chosen. So yeah, thanks for bringing some color with this. Appreciate it. That's all my comments.
Great. Thank you, Hillary. Okay, so yeah, first of all, it's really great to finally see some plans for this site. I'm familiar with it from years and years ago when it was actually active motels there. When at one time this was the only highway through Nanaimo, so there was lots of hotels along that strip, and there was a couple motels there that eventually closed down and just ended up in disrepair, and they ended up having to tear them down because of the social disorder around those. And then now we have the work camp, so I'm really happy to see a plan to get rid of that. This is my neighborhood, so and I think you've done a fine job of sort of reconfiguring a modular building. I'm glad to see it's not looking like the other two that have been put up in town so far. So it's got a bit different look, so it doesn't look like we've just got the same building being plunked all over town. So I really appreciate that. I think it really fits well into the Terminal Avenue neighborhood. I think it adds to that little strip, and I really like how you sited the building onto the corner and the little extra things like the rooftop and that little curved portion on the north side. So really well done. So thank you. And I don't really have any other suggestions to add, and I'm just looking forward to seeing something happen there. So that's great. So I'm just all I've got is 2 recommendations here that I can see. Consider a more durable lighting feature at the entrance. Consider using the same bike rack inverted U style in the long-term and short-term bike parking. Anything I missed? No? And there's no variances to worry about. So if I can have a motion to accept the proposal as presented with those 2 recommendations. Jonathan, seconder Hector, all in favor? Great. Excellent. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, panel.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you all.
And you're welcome. You're welcome to head out, and we have a little bit more business tonight, panel. As I think Lania let everybody know, it's Jonathan and my last meeting here. So that's fine with Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan, for all your work. It has been fun working with you. But in my position, since I'm leaving, one of you has to take the wonderful job of being chair. So we need to fill that position tonight. I guess they have tried in the past doing sort of rotating chairs. Somebody can also sit into it temporarily if we can't, if you don't want to do it permanently, but we need somebody to commit at least for the next meeting or so until somebody can be put in there. Unfortunately, you guys are also new, and then we have 2 people missing, so we could volunteer one of the people that's away maybe and vote them in. Anyway, so I guess it's between Hector, Alex, and Angie. So we can't elect Jonathan. Jonathan filled in for me a couple of times when I was away. So any volunteers who'd like to take over this wonderful job? I don't see you all jumping at once. Somebody want to be nominated?
You can nominate Marta.
Nominate somebody who's not here, or somebody can take it up if you want to just commit at least so there's somebody for the next meeting and you can discuss it. I guess I think the staff probably find it easier to deal with one person. One of the jobs you have to do is go and sign the minutes, or they send them to you and you sign them. Otherwise you have to sum up the recommendations as I've been doing and manage the meeting. I guess it wasn't so hard, was it, Jonathan, when you took over?
No, it was fun. I recommend it. It's a good experience.
He recommends it.
Madam Chair, if I can offer some encouragement. Obviously, the person stepping into the role would have an opportunity to ask you questions about how, what you do to prepare for meetings, or just how the meetings are typically run. And certainly staff are here to support as well. So definitely don't feel like you're stretching yourself too far.
Yeah, the staff has been great. I have to say that. They've always been very helpful. And one of my methods is I made up a little template based on the agenda with where to ask for motions, because it took me a while to remember to do that. So I basically had a little script that especially when I'm on Zoom, it's easy to do. And I just followed that. I don't have to follow it quite as closely as I used to, because I got used to it. But if you're not used to the order, so I'm happy to share any of that tips with you and stuff before as a final parting gift. So, anybody want to step forward? Hector, Alex, Angie? Come on, we can close the meeting. Somebody volunteers.
Can I make a nomination?
You go ahead.
I'll go Hector, if I can make a nomination.
The thing is, like, I'm over it, my term is over in 2 months from now.
Oh, so again.
Angie, I feel like you could be really good at this. You might be awesome at this, Andy.
I think Alex would be good too.
Yeah.
We're expecting baby number 2 in August this year, so I just feel like there might be a little bit of interruption, and also maybe brain is not at 100% capacity right now.
Totally fair. Congratulations. Thanks for gracefully accepting that nomination, but I get it. Alex.
I don't mind doing, if we just need to cover 1 week or something, that
yeah.
Would you cover a couple and then just and then maybe by then Alex will be ready? He just started too, so that's
I don't know.
or maybe you can hit up Marta when she's back, right? And there's a new person. Next meeting will be another new person, but it's really sort of unfair hitting the first person, unless they've been on this before, the new people. So, shall we nominate Angie then? Angie, are you okay with that for now?
Yeah, maybe for the 2 in May, and then
yeah, they usually wind down. June is done, and then there's a break in July and August. It sort of slows down usually.
True, yeah.
August typically.
August, no meetings at all, and then
I think I can do the 2 in May, and then from there on out maybe shift gears to somebody else. But yeah.
Well, appreciate that. That's great. So, if we can have a motion to nominate Angie, somebody gave me a little script here, to be appointed as chair of the Design Advisory Panel for the duration of the member's term. Well, no, that's just, we'll take that part out, just the chair for now. Okay. So Jonathan, I guess we can still nominate, can't we? You can make the motion, seconder. Alex, in favor, all of us. Okay. So Angie, you get the job at least for 2 times, and then I'll give you a chance to sort things out. And if you want any help, you just email me and let me know.
Sounds good. Yeah, if you have that script and would be open to sharing it, that would be.
I will send you my template.
That's great.
Template. I just want to thank everybody, all the panel, for all your contributions. It's been really nice working with you, and I would give a big thank you to the staff who are always behind the scenes. Without them, none of this would be happening, and they do a fine job. So really appreciate that. And the city councilors like Hillary, who sit on this, as well as many other very boring meetings sometimes. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. You've done an awesome job. And Jonathan, I'm really sad to lose both of you guys. You're kind of like heavy hitters on this panel. And I don't know what we're gonna do without you. So
well, these guys are just warming up. They're gonna step up.
Yeah, for sure.
They've been doing great. The last few meetings have been really good. I mean, they're longer, but we're getting lots of. It's great.
Thanks for all your input and guidance along the way to both of you.
Great.
And I'll echo Marie's thanks to the city staff and the other panel members. It's been a good 2 years. I've learned a lot from the other members. So yeah, thanks so much.
Great.
And from staff, we thank you both. Just as our parting wish you well, and for your expertise, much appreciated, and your guidance. And don't worry. To the rest of the panel members, obviously there are decisions that council will make. So there'll be some new faces. So thank you for your patience as we onboard. And but really want to wish Marie and Jonathan well. And thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Lena. Motion to adjourn. Everybody ready to go? Angie, seconded by Jonathan. All in favor? Great. Good night, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye.